Hello there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Ungainly Titan here again, and I wish to discuss the new playtest material that Wizards of the Coast have released on D&D Beyond there at the end of September, entitled Expert Classes. And so far I like to look at what I've seen. I was going to break down the playtest document and material in detail, but I decided against it because I think it is going to be subject to change, and I also think it's not going to be as strong an indicator of future material, of other material for other classes that some people seem to think that it is. Some of these changes might not stick, they might not appear in the final version of the game that comes out in 2024. They've already made changes from stuff that was in the original playtest packet that came out with the character origins there in the middle of September, and they may revert back to some of the original playtest material. Because one of the things that should be noted in this is that this playtest packet came out directly at the end of the survey period for the Character Origins playtest materials, so it is uninfluenced by the results of that Character Origins playtest material. Other YouTubers have, I think, done a better job of breaking down a blow-by-blow account or in great detail account of the changes in this playtest material and how it changes in the current classes, and even changes between the different versions of the playtest material. I would refer you to Treantmonk's Temple YouTube channel, where I think he has about 5 videos on the topic, and I think Nerd Immersion did a live stream that's over 4 hours long on the whole matter. So what you've got here are the expert classes, so-called because they've all got expertise. The Ranger is the one that didn't previously have expertise, but I think the Ranger badly needed expertise. It is one of the things that makes a class, in my opinion, competent in their core shtick in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and the Bard had expertise, the Rogue had expertise, the Bard also had the Jack of all trades ability, but the Ranger didn't, and could actually be outrangered by a well-built Rogue Scout. The other big noticeable change after expertise is the switch from spells known to spells prepared for the casting classes. So you have 2 casting classes in this selection, the Bard and the Ranger. The Ranger is a half-caster. Now he was a half-caster previously as well, but for the purposes of multiclassing and adding up your caster levels, the Ranger now rounds up rather than rounds down. So a 5th level Ranger is a 3rd level caster when you add it on to an existing caster class to work out your total spell slots available. However, that's a minor thing. The big thing is the switch from known to prepared. So in 5th edition, or currently the 2014 rules, and I will refer to them interchangeably, a spells known caster has a collection of spells that they know, and they can cast any of those spells in any amount depending on the slots available. So a 1st level Bard currently has 5 known 1st level spells. They have only 2 slots in a given 24-hour period from one long rest to another, so they can only cast 1 spell twice, or any permutation of the 5 they know once each. Now they select from the entirety of the 1st level spells of the Bard list, which is also different, I'll get back to that in a moment, 2 spells, and that's their choice for the day. Now, the Bard list has also been changed. Before, the Bard had a custom list that was available to Bards, with the exception of Magical Secrets. Now they cast from the Arcane list, but only from Divination, Enchantment, Illusion, or Transmutation schools of magic, with the exception of Magical Secrets. Magical Secrets allows them to override that. They can choose the Arcane list, and they get everything for the Magical Secret spells, but that's a separate issue, and I think relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. It's not a lot different from the current Magical Secrets, and it would be the same with Rangers, except obviously they'll have fewer slots to prepared with. The Rangers is from the Primal School, but the exception is Evocation Magic. Now, if you compare spells known or spells prepared systems that they're given to the Bard and the Ranger, and compare it to the existing spells prepared classes that can pick out of the entire list, which is the Cleric and the Druid. So the Cleric and the Druid the Cleric has all the divine spells. The Druid has a specific list of Druid spells. And at 1st level, or at any level, they can pick their level plus their spellcasting stat modifier. So if they had, say, a spellcasting stat wisdom, for instance, of 16, that modifier is +3. At first level, they get to prepare 4 spells. They have 2 slots, but they have 4 spells ready to go. If they're 5th level, they would have, at the same spellcasting modifier, 8 slots, 5 from the level, 3 from the spellcasting modifier. Now, a bard at 5th level currently will have, under the new Unearthed Arcana rules, will have 4 first level slots, 3 second level slots, and 2 third level slots. That's 9 in total. But you have to have, in that selection, you can't have, as far as I know at the moment, you can't have 5 first level spells and 2 second level spells and 2 third level spells. You have a reduction in flexibility. You have, and I wouldn't like this to be extended across all the spells prepared classes. I like the way the cleric and the druid currently select their spells. The wizard is similar, except for the list that they can select from. I actually like that kind of mechanic, and I wouldn't like to see this particular spell preparation methodology applied universally to all spell prepared classes, nor would I like to see all classes turned into spells prepared classes in this style. I think there is utility in having classes with spell known list. It's one of the things that I really liked about the Sorcerer, for instance, in 3rd edition. The Sorcerer was a spells known class that had a specific list of spells. Their benefit was they got, in 3rd edition, they got more slots than other casters, but they had a fairly limited selection. I think the problem in 5th edition with the Sorcerer, myself personally, is that their spells known list is a little too restrictive. But we'll have to wait and see how the Sorcerer is going to turn out. But for the purposes of a Bard and a Ranger, I don't have a big issue with this way of doing it. I'm not particularly fond of it either. I just wouldn't like to see it extended across the entire magic using caster classes in the game. The other feature that leaps out of this playtest material is the subclasses. All the 3 classes in the playtest material, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, all have a subclass presented based off of a subclass that was originally in the player's handbook. So the Bard gets the College of Lore Bard, the Ranger gets the Hunter subclass, the Thief gets, or the Rogue gets the Thief subclass, and they all gain levels on a common structure. So they gain levels, powers rather, at levels 3, 6, 10 and 14. Now I'm not going to go into the details of each of the classes and what they gain and lose at the different levels, and whether it's a nerf or a buff. There is pluses and minuses to all of it. But what I find interesting is the commonality of the power structure. Now this is a break with the existing power structure, so we'll go over the existing subclasses, or what they do, or where they come in at. So currently Bards get subclass features at 3, 6 and 14. Levels 3, 6 and 14. The Rogue at levels 3, 9, 13 and 17. And the Ranger at levels 3, 7, 11 and 15. So one obvious thing here is that the Rogues are going to get their subclass features earlier. So to a certain extent, but not as strongly as the Ranger. And this is useful on multiple levels. In fact, they've pushed class features down the level list already, so every class is now getting their capstone feature at level 18, and level 18 is becoming essentially the epic startup epic play, and the level 20 class feature is an epic boon given as a feat, with the epic boons being listed in the playtest material. But I think the commonality of the structure is more interesting, and the fact that the group is getting a single structure for the whole classes in the group. I think this is going to be replicated across the other groups. So the warrior group, the arcanist group, the clerical or devoted group are all going to get priestly group, are all going to get the same, or not, similar, not the same. I don't think it'll be the same. Similar subclass structures, so that all the classes in those groups will get the subclasses at the same level, though not necessarily at the same levels that we're seeing here. One of the benefits that I see here with a common subclass structure across the whole system, or at least across the classes in a specific group, is that you might get subclasses that are now going to be available for multiple classes. So you could get an expert subclass that would be kind of a multi-class Bard, Rogue, Ranger, sort of a mixture of all 3, or a mixture maybe of 2 out of the 3 elements. They kind of experimented with this with the Strixhaven Unearthed Arcana, but they backed away from it in the final product. And I certainly think it was I thought it was an interesting development at the time, and I was kind of all for it, and I'd like to see more of it in the future. Although it may not come out in the Player's Handbook in 2014, but I could see it as a development down along the line. Finally, and more interesting, are the changes to the rules glossary. There's obvious ones like the change of inspiration from the previous test packet, or reverting the critical rules back to the original 2014 rules, and so on. However, the really interesting stuff is the game has been codified much more extensively. In other ways, it's kind of reminiscent of 4th edition. However, they're not doing it with the same kind of motives. There's no effort to extend intellectual property over the actual rules of the game in the way 4th edition did, with proper names for powers and various other things like that. But all the basic actions and mechanics of the game now have been redefined or extended. There are new actions, and they have simple names. They're not copyrightable in their own things, like action, like the hide action. The jump is a separate action. It's no longer part of movement. There's different movement types are now defined separately, and movement actions, the attack action, magic is the magic action, or spellcasting is now the magic action. There is the influence action, the search action, the study action. Now, one of those things is, I suppose, they'll make the rules less ambiguous. The idea is, I suppose, they'll reduce the level of corner cases because the thing will be more tightly defined. I would hope that they strike a balance in that they don't give the impression that you can't do stuff that's not in the rules, which is always one of the problems when you overly tightly define the rules, and that you still are allowed to overrule the rules anytime you want, or for the convenience of a table or particular DMs to encourage rulings over rules where necessary. But I would encourage people to read the rules very carefully and to try and poke holes in it and rules layer it and see where it might break. For example, I'm not happy with the hidden condition and its interactions with the hide action and the invisible condition. It appears that one cannot hide if one is visible to any opponent. Now, I don't think that's right. I think that's a bit too extreme. I think it should be possible to be hidden from some opponents, but not necessarily hidden from all of them. I'm also not 100% sure about movement while hidden. But I like kind of the direction they're going with these new rules. I also have strongly disapproved of the invisible condition because it still retains a thing that I don't like at the current invisible condition, and I generally ignore, which is that you have disadvantage attacking somebody's invisible even if you can see them by some other means, like the see invisibility spell or tremor sense or something like that. But they have redefined ability checks, and they've done it in a way that seems to have ended passive checks. So, to go back to the hiding hidden, it's now replaced by kind of an opposed passive check. So if we look at the hiding, one takes the hide action, and if one is allowed hide, you fulfill all the prerequisites, you make an ability check, checking stealth, your ability, if you're proficient, and you have to make a DC 15 check. But if you succeed, then the DC to spot you is the roll that you made the check by. So if you roll a 17 on your DC 15 hide check, an enemy who takes the search action to spot you will now need to roll 17 or better. So they get a hidden condition with the DC to spot defined by your hide. They've, like I said, redefined the attack action. Spellcasting has become the magic action, and spells that take more than one turn to cast require a magic action each turn of casting time, and the concentration rules apply, which is significant. There's a search action is now more than just searching. It includes stuff like use of insight, medical diagnosis, tracking, and hunting. The influence action covers social interaction and negotiation. The study action is another one that handles a lot of stuff that was typically described as skills before. Stuff like arcana checks and religion checks to history to discern how you know stuff or how much you know stuff. Overall, I think this is a very interesting development, and I'd be curious to know if people have spotted any unusual interactions that would give rise to sort of strange weirdness, and I think that should be brought to the attention of Wizards of the Coast in the survey. And I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are on the glossaries and the rules glossary section, or anybody that has an interesting take on YouTube or elsewhere, because I don't think enough attention has been paid to this side of it, to the rules codification side of things, and I think, like I said, it is very profound changes going forward in the game. So thanks for watching and listening, and I hope to hear from you all again soon.